Hi everybody, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is the United Stand and this is your latest Manchester United news as Real Madrid move for Garnacho, as Bruno Fernandes says we should go for Joao Neves, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe drops an absolute transfer bomb in relation to what United are going to try and do under Ineos. This is the international break you deserve. It feels like Christmas. It really does. That Liverpool result still resonating 2 days later, not just because we're still in the cup and we beat Liverpool, but also because we get the transfers, we get the stories, we get the international break I want. I'm getting goosebumps instead of all this manager out talking about Potter or De Zerbi or Southgate. We're actually genuinely talking about the real things that matter, being linked to real players, talking about how we're going to change things in the summer, which is going to be the biggest impact we need this summer. So bloody excited about this. It's been a long time coming, and finally the press are having to do their job and start talking about things that United fans want to talk about. Transfers, ins and outs, how we rebuild this football club. This is what we want. How boring would it be if we'd lost to Liverpool on Sunday and be talking about De Zerbi or Potter? Get out. We're talking about Joao Neves. We're talking about the type of players we're going to buy. And I'm going to drop this transfer bomb straight away. This is what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said to @GT Cycling Club. Mbappe to Man United? I'd try to find the next Mbappe, rather than spend a fortune trying to buy success. It's not that clever to sign Mbappe now. It's more challenging to find the next Mbappe, or the next Bellingham, or the next Roy Keane. And he also said this: it's not where our focus is, buying a Jude Bellingham. The solution isn't spending a lot of money on a couple of great players. They've done that for the last 10 years. The first thing we need to do is get the right people in the right boxes who are managing and organising the club, and make sure we get recruitment right. It's such a vital part of running a club today. Well, it's an open goal. It's an open goal by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but you've got to score it. And not everyone scores an open goal. And he's absolutely spot on. I feel like it's an echo chamber. I feel like I'm listening to you over the last 10 years. We've been talking about this for ages. It's obsession. If your budget's not that big, don't spend all of it on one player. He's absolutely right. We need to recruit better. We need to be recruiting our own Bellinghams, our own Roy Keanes. You know, this is what we need to do. And it's interesting what Bruno says about Joao Neves, saying he's ready for the step up. Fantastic player. Absolutely fantastic. And we'll talk about it in a moment. But it's going to cost 100 million quid. And I'm with Sir Jim on this. We can't spend. That's a Man City signing. That's a club that, for whatever reason, they've cooked the books, whatever they've done, they're absolutely loaded. Their revenue in FFP means they can spend £100 million on a player every summer. They can go and buy Joao Neves because they have the budget and the team and the structure to do it. We can't do that. We can't spend £100 million on a player anymore because the enormity of the job is not solved by one player. So look, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I don't know whether he's been watching you lot. I don't know whether he's been reading stuff or whatever. I don't know whether he's just got common sense, but he's absolutely spot on, because this is right. We can't keep spending hundreds of millions of pounds on one or two players. We do need to be recruiting better. And I like what he said about we need to put the structure in for the recruitment. It's massively important. So maybe we can come back to that in a minute. But let's go to what the main news is. Oh, just a big shout out. Goldbridge Saves Football podcast landed today. If you want to listen to that when you're out and about today, or you're down the gym, or you just want to listen to something, Goldbridge Saves Football podcast, links in the description, or scan the QR code on your camera. Basically talking about United and whether they're back, and a load of other things. Pratt of the week, loads of stuff in there. Quite an interesting exclusive reveal from me about how close I was to being Ten Hag out, actually. I'm not going to mention it on here. It's on the podcast. There's a little push there. Right. Mark, you've changed your mind on Ten Hag, says Henrik. No. I think I'm the most consistent, haven't changed my mind. So there we go. Where's this Garnacho story coming from? Want to talk about that. Want to talk about Bruno Fernandes. 2 massive reveals from him. One about Joao Neves. One about him acknowledging he's not playing that well. So all these prats we get who come in going, why are you always saying that Bruno's not playing well? Because I can see he's not playing well. I love Bruno. I want him to play well. I know he's not playing well. Well, he's admitted he's not playing well. So what are you going to do then? You know when you kiss ass, Player FC, and then your player comes out and says, I'm not playing well. Where do you go then? You're exposed as player FC, aren't you? I love it. I love it. So I love Bruno. I've always wanted him at the club. I really like him. He's not playing well, and that's the point, isn't it? You can love a player, but you can be honest and say they're not playing well. I've had people going, stats, this, that. I love Bruno. Bruno's come out and said, yeah, I'm not playing well. So he's just exposed one of the biggest problems in football, player FC, who will kiss arse of people even when they're not playing well. And then the player comes out and says, I'm not playing well. And player FC just look like a bunch of fanboys and girls, don't they? It's hilarious. You can criticise players that you love when they're not playing well. And he's admitted it. We'll talk about that as well. Also, Ten Hag, big statement about Ahmad as well. But I want to get into the transfer stuff. I feel like I'm reborn. Last week I said I felt like I'd been off it for 3 months, and I'm back on it. But I feel transfer bridge. This is what we do. Transfer. I just think about all the shows I've done over the years. Lozano in a hotel room. I didn't do Lozano in a hotel room. I meant like a Lozano. I was in London in my hotel room. I went live. Just all the stories over the years. I love it. It's very different to matches. I know some people don't like transfers, but I fucking love it. It's brilliant. I've always loved it. From getting home from school when I was like 9 years of age, ready Brett, cornflakes, get 312 on teletext. What's the news? I love it. Can we do what Chelsea does and pay in 8 years, says Mario. Let's talk about this story. So, not again. Not again. What are we talking about here? So, Real Madrid, sources coming in from Madrid, it's not a source, it's true. Real Madrid will be in Manchester in April because they're playing Manchester City. So, stories in Spain are saying that Perez wants Garnacho, and while he's in Manchester, he's going to set up meetings to discuss signing Garnacho. I could throw that out the window and go, that's bollocks, nonsense. It's a news story, so we can bring it into a news show, but it's a load of nonsense. But I do have a little bit of a concern. I've said before, for me, this is 2 years away. 2 years away. That Garnacho goes to Real Madrid. I don't think that's an out there, I don't think that's out there. I feel that we have a real opportunity with Garnacho over the next few years, but I think Real Madrid will probably, end up going to Real Madrid. I think that's the case. I just have that feel. I hope I'm really wrong. I think Garnacho's an amazing player, and he's only 19 years of age. In fact, when is Garnacho 20? Because this is really interesting. Because what worries me a little bit is that there's always been this thing around Garnacho and Real Madrid. I mean, in fact, I think he was actually born in Madrid, wasn't he? But so maybe that's where he wants to be. I don't know. But he's 20 in July, so he'll be 21 next summer. What worries me about Real Madrid is, I would say Garnacho, Real Madrid, 2 or 3 years' time, we might have a problem because I think his ceiling is massive. I think he's got real potential. And it will massively piss me off, to be honest, to develop another player to the point where they're pretty much world class, and then they go to Real Madrid for their prime years. And you know who I'm talking about, Ronaldo. But I feel that this could happen, and I think a lot of United fans sort of think it could happen because Garnacho, it's just the sort of thing that Real Madrid would do. What worries me though is, why do it? I mean, the way football is heading, the Premier League is the best league in the world and La Liga isn't. So it's just this Real Madrid obsession that some players have, which, is fine. But the thing that worries me is Real Madrid have almost changed tact. Do they really wait until a player's 23, 24 anymore? Look at Bellingham. Look at Tchouaméni, look at Camavinga, look at Vinicius Jr., look at Rodrigo. They're all pretty young players. They're all teenagers or in their early 20s. So they might not wait on Garnacho. They might just go, right, we're just going to go for him. We're going to make it obvious we want him, and we're going to try and get him. Now, it's not going to be this summer. It's not going to be this summer because it's all about Mbappe. But I do worry that we might only get 1 more year out of Garnacho. They might start, he's their 2025 summer signing, which gives us only 1 more year. So in relation to this story, I'll call bullshit. I think Garnacho's very happy at Manchester United. Man United wouldn't sell him. I don't believe there's going to be talks with Perez next month. I just think it's bullshit. But what I would acknowledge is we might only get another year out of him. Like, if their obsession is Garnacho for next summer, and Real Madrid always have a big signing, then we might have a problem, because they are more than capable now of signing 21-year-olds, 20-year-olds. They do that. And, you know, if a player wants to go and the money's right, and look, let's be honest, we don't know what an Ineos future is. I don't want to sell Garnacho. I'd dig my heels in and say, you're not going anywhere till you're 23. You can stay with us for 3 years. We want at least 3 years out of you. And you might get away with that. You might be able to hold the player down for that. But Ineos might go, it's 100 million quid of pure profit. We don't know how we're going to run as a football club. You know, on the one hand, we're not going to spend big money on players. We're going to recruit well. And on the other hand, what are we going to do about people like Garnacho when someone comes in and offers 100 million quid? Because if we're recruiting small and we're selling high, we're just a glorified Brighton. Hello, Dan Ashworth. So these are things that you all need to keep in your head over the next months, weeks, and years. We don't know what the plan is with Ineos and the Glazers. It sounds great that we're going to recruit our own Bellinghams, but what are we going to do with those Bellinghams when they hit their potential? You know, if we're going to get Garnacho and develop him for another year and then we're selling him to Real Madrid for 100 million quid, 100 million quid's great, straight into the pocket, but that's not really what I want our club to do. When I was growing up, you had the Inter Milans, you had the Juventuses. Serie A was a better league than Premier League. They were knocking on the door saying, we want Scholes, we want Giggs, we want Keane. You're not having them. You're not having them. Don't care what the price is, you're not having them. We need to do that. It's all right recruiting well, but I want us to hold on to our players. Ronaldo, for me, is one of the biggest disappointments of my, supporting Manchester United. And he wanted to go. But, look, I think the Garnacho story is a load of bollocks. But let's not forget, when Real Madrid get obsessed and a player's interested, it's bloody hard to keep hold of them. And Real Madrid have changed their policy. In the past, I think they'd wait till Garnacho's 23, which gives us 4 more years. Nowadays, Camavinga and the younger players, they'll go for them sooner rather than later. So let's wait and see. Did he not just sign a 5-year contract, Mark, says Carlos? Yeah, but all a 5-year contract does, Carlos, is make his value high when we sell him. It doesn't mean he can't go. It's very rare that a player will just say, will be able to say you're not going anywhere. You've got a 5-year contract. Look, the biggest thing is, what does Garnacho want to do as well? Hi, Mark. What would you do in Garnacho's position? Stay at United and get first-team football, or go to a club where he'll be a rotation for Madrid, says Sean. The best thing we can do, if we want to keep Garnacho, is next season go up a massive level. With Mainu, with Højlund, start creating something really exciting. Start competing for Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. Because if I'm Garnacho and United have a season like this season, next season, and Real Madrid come along, it's au revoir, not French. It's hola, por favor, 2 pintos con limón, gracias. I think he just said hello. I'll have 2 pints of lager with a bit of lemon. Thank you. But, same principle. I'm off, because Real Madrid will win things. It's Real Madrid. You're going to play with great players and you're going to be in the Champions League. United have to provide a platform for these players. And even that might not be enough. Ronaldo had just won the Ballon d'Or, just been to the Champions League final, just won the Premier League, and off he went to Real Madrid. Adios. Hi, Mark. What would you do in Garnacho's position? Good question, though, Sean. Anyway, look, that's the story on Garnacho. A very interesting one. Have you seen the... I don't know what that's all about. If Madrid come for Garnacho, he will go. He wants to follow Ronaldo's steps, says Staffo. Look, and maybe, bit of a stretch, but maybe this is why we're looking at Elise. Maybe Man United are thinking Garnacho could go in the next year or two, and we're looking at Elise now. To be honest with you, you can clip this. I don't really care. It's purely footballing. Garnacho or Rashford? Bye-bye, Rashford. Simply because I think Garnacho's ceiling is higher, and he's 19, not 26. So, if you're telling me in the next 2 years we're selling Garnacho and we're keeping Rashford, well, in 2 years' time, Rashford's touching 30 and Garnacho's going in his prime at Real Madrid. That's a symbol of Man United. If it's Rashford or Garnacho, Rashford has to go. But if it's Rashford or Garnacho and we keep Rashford and Garnacho goes, that says a lot about your football club, because you're letting the talent go and you're keeping the player that's coming towards the end of his career. And this is what we've done for a lot. You know, we can't be in anybody's shadow. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe is saying we're going to make Man United the greatest club in the world, you don't sell your players to Real Madrid. You don't do that. Who do you keep and who do you let go? Who do you bring in? That's a video coming up, Shabazz. We'll talk about that later in the week. I want to talk to you about Bruno Fernandes, and I want to talk to you about Joao Neves. I'm loving this show this morning. I'm loving the fact that we get to talk about bloody transfers. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'll bloody love it if we beat them. So, right, let me talk to you about Bruno Fernandes. So, he's been talking about Joao Neves. Now, if you don't know who Joao Neves is, funnily enough, I think he's the same age as Garnacho, 19, midfielder. What type of a midfielder? Plays for Benfica. Also been called up to Portugal. Bruno Fernandes has been speaking about him. He's also been speaking about himself. He said, look, I don't know whether it's true about Manchester United being interested in Joao Neves, but he's definitely ready to take the next step up and play in the Premier League. What a player. What a talent. Look, really, really interesting profile of player. Certainly a player that I think would walk into our midfield. Where does he play? Well, look, there is a bit of... I'm going to talk the player up and then I'm going to drop the negative, but let me talk him up. First of all, what a player. I think he's about 5'10", which might be a red flag to some people. However, statistically, he's really good in the air. He wins a lot of aerial duels, even though he's not the traditional CDM of over 6 foot like Rodri and Rice and Casemiro. He's actually good in the air. Brilliant close ball control, very good tackler, very good dribbler, very good at reading the game, very good passer, very good at receiving the ball. So he's got the lot. And some people say, really, he's a number 8. Could be a number 10. But he does play in a holding role. I think he plays in a 2 with Benfica. Well, hello, this is what Manchester United need. We need that sort of player. And look, I think Man United would be better playing a 2, where one goes and one sits. When you're on the attack, you go, I'll sit, you go, I'll sit. But when the attack breaks down, get back and help me. I think that's what United need. We don't want to play a midfield 2. I don't think we need to play a holding 2. I think we need to have a holding 2 when we've got no ball. But when we've got the ball, I think one of them should be pushing into the attack. Not like what we've got at the moment, where one sits all the time and McTominay bombs off in the box and Bruno's all over the place and the midfield's wide open. So, you know, maybe you could see a Joao Neves and a Mainu. If we develop the defensive side of Mainu's game, maybe they become this pivot, this modern pivot. I don't know. But we certainly do need to bring in a player of that ilk. We do need to bring in someone like a Joao Neves. I've heard a lot of people say, you know what, not really that interested in him. He's too small. He's 5'9", I think, 5'9". Enzo Fernandez is about that, 5'10", I think. Casido is about that, 5'10". Kante was 5'6". I think we get obsessed with what is recency bias. At the moment, the quintessential holding midfielder is Rodri. You know, over 6 foot, physical, good at passing. But it's not always been like that. You know, you go back to people like Roy Keane, David Batty, Xavi, Iniesta. I know they're not definitely holding midfielders, but they played in the midfield area. Kante is probably the best example. I don't think Seedorf, he might have been deceptively bigger than he was. But look, there's nothing wrong with being a 5'10" holding midfielder. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. So, and Joao Neves is 19. I'm not saying he's going to grow up, but he'll certainly grow out. So I would happily love this player to sign for Man United in the summer. I think Bruno Fernandes is absolutely correct. The problem is going to be he has got 103 million pound release clause, and exactly as Silas says, the price tag is going to be a killer, as Dal says as well. The price tag is going to be an absolute killer for Manchester United on this. So I think that as exciting as he is, and as annoying as it will be to see him probably sign for Manchester City, and he'll be a bloody brilliant player for them. If they bring him in with what they've already... I mean, Rodri's only 18. I mean, he's not. He's 27. But, you know, it's a huge, huge scoop for Man City, and they can afford it. But we can't afford that. We can't afford that. And, you know, as Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said, you know, it's really interesting what Jim Ratcliffe has said about how we we can't keep spending this amount of money. And, you know, we need to find our own Mbappe. We need to find our own Bellingham. We need to find our own Roy Keane. It's not clever to spend that amount of money. So I think that as much as it bothers me, I really. Yeah, I'm back now. Yeah, I think I've just read something from Sir Jim Ratcliffe that is absolutely amazing. It's going to upset a few Ten Hag outers, but look, at the end of the day, I like Joao Neves. I think he's a good player. I think he'd be a brilliant signing for Manchester United, but I'm going to do a bit of a poll on this, actually. Let's go interactive. Would you spend... It's not would you sign, because I would. Would you spend 100 million on Neves? Yes or no? And the reason I ask is I don't know how that poll's going to go. I mean, it's hard for fans. I think most fans are going to go, yeah, of course I would. But I think we're a little bit deeper than that now. I think we've become very aware of our budget constraints. I think we've become very aware of the problem of spending £100 million on one player means that you probably only have enough money to buy two others. So, interesting. Ricky says, Mark, McTominay's made me eat my words. I was upset he wasn't sold for 30 million. Definitely worth more if we sell him in the summer, says Ricky. I think he needs to go for what I said yesterday. I just don't think he suits the way we want to play. He spends too much time in the opposition's box and we get broken on. Unless he's going to play the Bruno role, which we've got to have two players who play more defensively. Look, this is amazing. I hadn't read this. This is from the same interview with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Listen to this. Incredible. He was asked about who he would like to win the Premier League. He says, I hate them all. But then he said, it should be good for Arteta. He's done really well there, and Arsenal have been patient with him, which is nice as well. I mean, that is absolutely massive. That is massive for Manchester United. Huge hint, he'll give Ten Hag time. Or he's a hypocrite. So absolutely massive that. I mean, that to me is sort of like the drop of this transfer, this international break. Arteta's done well at Arsenal, and Arsenal have been patient with him, which is nice as well. And you know what? If he was now to sack Ten Hag, that would be ridiculous. And what makes me laugh again is that I've been saying it, some of you've been saying it, Arsenal had a bad start under Arteta. They won the FA Cup though, Mark. They won the FA Cup though, Mark. Yeah, we went to the FA Cup final and we won the Carabao Cup and we're going to be in another FA Cup final. So you could say that Ten Hag's bad start, and we finished third. Ten Hag's bad start is better than Arteta's bad start. Arteta finished 8th, I think twice. I've been saying this. Arsenal fans wanted Arteta out. They were some of them were printing T-shirts. Look at them now. Patience, time. Look at where they are now. This is exactly why, as bad as this season's been, I really want this clear out in the summer, and I want to see what happens next year. And if Sir Jim Ratcliffe's saying that publicly about Arsenal, then it would be so hypocritical to not give Ten Hag another year. So that could be a massive statement from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, to be acknowledging the job that Arteta's done by being given patience by Arsenal Football Club. It would be incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it would be a big, big, big statement that goes out to all those players that think they might be able to survive another manager. Big, big, big statement. Pay 80 million and let Neves stay there on loan for a year. Oh, Rudy, you're just pissing 80 million down the drain. Avi says, if we don't build a proper quality squad, Garnacho must be tempted to go to Madrid. Any competent football director knows this, says Avi. And we've done that from Shabazz. Get your comments in. Sanai says, I wouldn't trust Bruno's judgment on players. Let me just read this quote from Bruno Fernandes, right? I want you to listen to this and then give me your thoughts on this. So I've said this season, and I'll take one for the team here because I know a lot of you've said it as well. But there are people out there that don't like Bruno. We know they haven't liked him when he was good, you know, and they're quite toxic about why they don't like him, etc. I think there's ex-players that don't like Bruno. I think there's a media that don't like Bruno, and they're on his back for absolutely everything. And I've defended him for that. You know the game when we lost 7-0 and that rumour went round from a certain ex-player that he wanted to sub himself off, and he definitely didn't. And there was never any apology for that, and that's character assassination, and it's not nice. It's not nice when people spread lies about you on mainstream media. And Bruno didn't want to come off. Absolutely not. I mean, you can be Bruno's biggest hater as a United fan, and you would never sit there and say that he'd down tools and want to come off. I mean, the guy plays injured. So he's had a lot of unfair bad press, and I've protected him from that, and I know a lot of you have as well. But when you protect somebody because you like them, when they're not performing, the best thing you can do is be honest. They're the best people you need around you in life. The people that care for you, respect you, trust you, but are honest with you when you let your standards drop. And I feel that that's what I, and some of you do with Bruno. I've been very critical of him this calendar year, especially. He's nowhere near, in my opinion, and I hold him to a high account, he's nowhere near the level he should be. The same as Rashford, but we're not talking about Rashford. We're talking about Bruno. Nowhere near the level he should be. His work rate, his commitment to the cause, the fact that he plays injured in every single minute is fantastic. But the postman could do that. Not every United player does it, to be fair, but that should come as standard, is what I'm saying. You know, effort and dedication to the cause should come as standard and used to come as standard with every player in the squad. Unfortunately now, with the likes of a Bruno and a McTominay, their effort stands out massively because not everyone else puts that effort in, which is a crying shame. This is what Bruno Fernandes has had to say, because you say Bruno's not had a good season and certain hipsters jump on you and start throwing stats at you. And they start saying he is having a good season. And I won't have it. I don't think he is. Well, this is the words of Bruno Fernandes. At Manchester United, it hasn't been a successful season individually. I'm perfectly aware I have the capacity to do more and better as always. But I'm not worried about it at the moment because my commitment and dedication is always at its maximum. So what Bruno Fernandes has done there, in a couple of succinct sentences, he has basically encapsulated what we've been saying. His work rates and commitment to this football club can never be questioned. He puts a shift in and more every single game. But by his own admission, he's not at the level he should be. He knows it. So when people are criticising Bruno Fernandes in a fair way, I think he acknowledges it because he'll be his own biggest critic. The big question I would love to know, and I don't know whether Bruno knows it himself, is why? Why are you able to run around for 120 minutes? Why are you able to play every single game? But why is your game falling apart? Like, he's just out of form, says Red Devil 24. I don't really understand it. I actually have a theory. I actually think it's discipline. I really do. I think it's discipline. And I don't know whether we can find that discipline this season because the team is just, you know, as I've said many times, it's like a jigsaw puzzle that doesn't have the right pieces. But I think if you have the right structure, there's that word again, and you can say to Bruno, stop running at right back, stop going behind the holding midfielder, stop going out to the right wing, just watch someone like Odegaard and play in that sort of square between the midfield and the attack, and don't drift out of that square. You know, play the disciplined number 10 role like you see De Bruyne, like you see Odegaard, like you see Maddison. Play that role and you will get back to your best. I think at the moment, as captain, he's almost trying to do 2 or 3 roles, and you become jack of all trades. You see the energy, but master of none. And I think the discipline of Bruno's position is what he needs. But obviously, it's a bit like when you're playing lunchtime football, if you still play lunchtime football, and you get put in a crap team, and the other team's stronger than you. You can't just stay up front and wait for the service. You end up centre-back and up front. You know, you're doing everything. And that's what I see with Bruno Fernandes. And anybody who's played that sort of football with your mates at lunchtime or wherever, You know, you get put in a weaker team and you want to win, and you're like, I can't just wait for the ball up front. I'm going to have to go back in the midfield and win it, and you're running around everywhere. And that, I think that's what Bruno Fernandes is doing at the moment. I think if you put a Joao Neves behind him and a Casemiro behind him, and then you've got, you know, good wingers and a high line defence, I don't think he needs to do all that. So I think it's a problem this season that he's going to have to persist with. But hopefully next season that structure comes into the team. Do you think the captain, Joshua Smith says when he was vice captain, he was better. Do you think the captain is an issue? Well, I mean, that's a question in itself. That is a question in itself. I mean, who was the last player to have the Man United captaincy and play well consistently? I think Rooney. I mean, look, some people think Rooney was burning out anyway, but I think Rooney, the fire went out when he got the captaincy. We've seen Maguire struggle. You know, people are saying it about Bruno now. But the captaincy of Man United is an easier job. Look, Rashford's job's easier. Rasmus's job is easier. Bruno's job is easier. Everybody's job's easier if the team's got the right plan. And we don't have the right plan at the moment. It's very imbalanced. I mean, we won a game on Sunday and it was great, but don't go analysing that game because you'll start crying. Especially the second half. It was chaotic. It was chaos football. And I think this is why we need a bit of patience. I think sometimes Ten Hag instructions to Bruno don't help. Playing in right midfield and asking your captain to show by example under pressure won't help, says Store Dog. Swap deal with Alvaro Fernandez for Neves and cash, says Jack. I don't think they'll give us even 10 million for Alvaro Fernandez, so it's not going to really do us that much good, Jack, as much as I like the idea. Ad says, I wish we had an Arsenal channel that went live as often with a character like Mark. He really does a great job. I envy you guys, says Ad. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate that from a rival. Hope you win the league. Not because I want you to win the league. I just don't want Liverpool or Man City to win the league, so hope you win the league. Vidic was a class captain. Partip says, you never want to sell Rashford. Are you scared? I'm not scared of saying anything, mate. Over the years, I've said a lot of things. I think with Rashford, as I've said before, I think knowing he's not going to be sold sort of makes me... I suppose in a way I'm just saving my own blood pressure or stress levels or whatever like that. I don't see the point in banging your head on a brick wall. Like, we're not going to sell him, so I just ignore it, really. Also, if I'm being honest, Rashford being sold, he's sort of outside the 10 players I'd sell before him. I'm not saying he shouldn't be sold, by the way, but he's outside the 10. I think there's way more players that have got to go before him or decisions be made before him. What I will say is, I'm as concerned as anybody about how we get the best out of him. But, you know, the club aren't going to sell him. Let me talk to you about Ahmad. I think this sort of got lost in the aftermath of Sunday. And I think there's a couple of things I want to say around this anyway, but certainly around Ten Hag. So many, I mean, I don't know what I said when he scored that winner, by the way, but I do remember something about, well done everybody in the chat for saying that I've completely forgot my point now. I was saying in the chat, well done for everybody who just kept going on and on about Ahmad. I mean, it did get a bit earachy at times, but, you know, a lot of you were saying, why is Ahmad not coming on? Why is he not coming on? And I think, you know, that was a great moment. What I loved was what Ten Hag said after the game, and it sort of got lost in the euphoria of a fantastic result, naturally. But he basically said that, look, he had a really bad injury at the start of the season. He's come back from that. And since January, his performances in training haven't been rewarded with the minutes he's deserved. And he's had to be patient. So he's saying, look, I'm really, really pleased about that. And sometimes that's just the way it is. Decisions are made around certain games and stuff. And he's had to wait for the opportunity that really he's probably deserved and has deserved before. And I think that's management. You know, it's very easy to be a manager in a live chat or sat in this chair, but real management is the difficulty of knowing that players probably do deserve a chance, but you can't find a way to give them that chance. And some might say, well, you know what, he should have given him a chance. He should have given him a starter sooner rather than later. But maybe he should have done. You know, the justification is in what he did at the weekend. So, yeah, maybe he should have given him a start sooner. But for a manager to come out and acknowledge that, what are we arguing about? Like, Ahmad has just scored a goal that we'll always remember against our biggest rival. And he's getting the plaudits he deserves. Maybe you start him a couple of months ago against Forest and he plays absolutely shit. And people go, well, it was all hype. You know, the way it's gone hasn't damaged anybody. You know, he's had to be patient. You've had to be patient. I've had to be patient. Ten Hag's acknowledged he's had to be patient. But he's ended up, his breakthrough moment is scoring a goal like that. I'm sure if you said to Ahmad, do you want to wait 2 months to score a goal like that and have everybody saying how great you are? Or do you want to have a few more sporadic minutes in games that you don't do anything in? And patience is an important thing. And I think it's a word that sort of overarches United. But Ten Hag didn't need to do that. He didn't need to do that. He could have just said, you know, we know we've got a good player, but he's had to wait for the right time, and this was his moment. To come out and say he's deserved minutes before this, and it's on me, is proper leadership, and that will just build Ahmad up even more, because he'll be on cloud 9 anyway, and then he'll hear that from the manager, and he'll go, you know what, everything I've been doing, he's been happy with, and I think that's good management. International says so. He's admitted he's been playing favourites. I mean, look, mate, I'm sure your international break is being ruined by the fact that no one gives a shit about talking about a new manager. And I think you're trying to twist a negative there, but whatever makes you sleep at night, mate. I mean, is that not what any manager does? You know, is Pep Guardiola not picking his favourites? Jack Grealish doesn't get picked. Your favourite, it might not be the manager's favourite. I just think it's true management to come out and acknowledge that, you know, Ahmad probably deserved more minutes. I think on that point as well, international sort of pulled us into that. We've got some really difficult games coming up. That first week after the international break is tough. Brentford away, Chelsea away, Liverpool at home. We could lose all three. We could easily lose all three. I hope that we can win 2 and draw 1. I think that would be a really good week. But, you know, there are bigger battles ahead, and that midfield is still ridiculously wide open. If I was Chelsea or I was Brentford or I was Liverpool, I'd be looking at those games, and I certainly wouldn't be intimidated. I'd be like, we can win this game. Their midfield is wide open. So there's still many battles ahead to come. But it is a good point and moment to just sort of assess United in an international break. And what I will say is that and it got lost in the chaos, but that first 35 minutes against Liverpool was brilliant. Like, Liverpool, we created so many chances. It was from minute 1 to minute 35, it was brilliant. It wasn't perfect, but it was brilliant for what we had, considering the midfield was ridiculously imbalanced. Considering, you know, you haven't got Martinez at the back, you've got Lindelof at the back, and you've got Wan-Bissaka at left back. It's not a natural back four, and they all did really well. And the midfield did well for 35 minutes. The way we played against Liverpool in that first 35 minutes, the tempo, the intensity, the way we moved the ball around was a glimpse, again, of what we can do. And I go back to that Wolves game away from home. That first 65 minutes, again, was a glimpse of what we can do. We can't turn our back on these glimpses. I heard somebody this morning saying, I still think Ten Hag will get the sack, even if he wins the FA Cup, because Van Gaal got the sack. And I was like, but that's like saying, you know, I went to work this morning and got a blowjob. Doesn't mean he's going to go to work this morning and get a blowjob. It doesn't work like that. And that might be quite harsh on a morning, but I think most people will be quite happy with A scenario. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen for B scenario or BJ scenario, whatever you want to call it. And what I mean by that is, just because Van Gaal was Dutch and won an FA Cup final for Man United doesn't mean that this Dutch FA Cup final winner, potentially with Ten Hag, will get the sack. With Van Gaal, that there wasn't any glimpses in the last 6 months. It was just horrible, boring. Get him out. And Mourinho was waiting. We've had a couple of glimpses with Ten Hag, and we've also got 3 or 4 fantastic young players coming through. And we haven't got a Mourinho waiting for the job. Mitigating. We can't compare Van Gaal and his last 6 months to Ten Hag and his last 6 months, because they're Dutch and they might have an FA Cup final to win. We have 3 or 4 young players who have the potential to be really special coming through under Ten Hag's guidance. We've had a glimpse in a couple of games of what we can do, and we've got massive injury problems. And there is no Jose Mourinho superstar manager waiting for this job. I hope what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said in that interview is true, that his admiration for Arsenal's patience with Arteta is something that we're going to see with Ten Hag at Manchester United. Because I've seen too many glimpses over the last few weeks to leave this and go, let's replace him. I would be so disappointed to change a situation whereby you've got the Mainus, the Garnachos, the Rasmuses. There are others coming through as well. You've got this glimpse of how we can play in that first 35 minutes against Liverpool, who are a good team. Wolves away. You've got all these players to come back from injuries. You've got this structure being put into place. It just feels to me like, you know, you're throwing something in the bin that's got so much potential. And for me, that's just that's just not what I would do. Sack Ten Hag now, suffer for 5 more years, says Shabazz. But, you know, it's just words, mate. You're just throwing words out. I've just spent 2 minutes explaining why I wouldn't do it. You're just throwing words out, and we're meant to go, yeah, Shabazz, you've hit it. You've hit the nail on the head. Sack Ten Hag now or suffer for 5 more years. What are you basing that on? What are you basing that on? I don't get it. But look, the positivity around transfers and the positivity around rebuild and structure are something I want to hear. And I don't want to say we're out of the woods yet, because we're not. You know, we're not. We've got some big games to come. I mean, we've got to play Arsenal at Old Trafford in May. We've got that FA Cup semi-final. We've got some tough away games like Brighton and Bournemouth and Crystal Palace. Obviously got that Liverpool game at home. Chelsea away is going to be difficult. Brentford away is going to be difficult. We've got some real big games. And, you know, I want to know as well, I want to know how long it's going to take for us to find out how long someone like Casemiro's out for. You know, I want to know that. Really, really good. Those quotes, by the way, that I got were from MUFC MPB. Got to shout them out for that, from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Somebody just said there's some more news coming through. I'm just trying to find out. There's some... I'm almost reluctant to do this, because people are just going to react to it and say, you know, it's PR off the pitch again, of which, you know, I don't think it's very fair. Right, there's a story come out here from Marcus Rashford's mother, who says that Rashford lost a second very important person in his life, his cousin, in November. A very good family friend had died a year earlier, which set him back a lot. It's a lot for someone so young to deal with. And it is. It is. It is. And I mean, it's news. It's out there. It's in a news outlet. It's an interview with his mother. And, you know, I'm not going to be ageist on this. I don't care whether somebody's 18, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66, 76, 86. If you've got to 86, you've done well. It's difficult. It's really difficult when you lose people that are close to you, and it must be really difficult for a footballer. But, you know, we can't just sweep that under the carpet. We can't just sweep that under the carpet. It is really tough. I mean, I remember when Cristiano Ronaldo's dad, who was massive in his life, he was at Man United the first time, and his dad died. And it was in the season. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sort of going back into the memory now. it was during the season. His dad died, and Sir Alex obviously was like, take some time out. I think he went back to Portugal, obviously. I can't remember what year it was, but I think he was back playing after like one game. But that's Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, Cristiano Ronaldo is an absolute, well, he's a legend of the game. He's a mentality king. Not everybody has that. Not everybody can deal with that. And people will say, well, Rashford stands there going like that. That's a celebration. That doesn't mean he's got the best mentality in football. That's a celebration. That doesn't mean that losing somebody close to him in November can fuck up his whole season. Look, some people, they can lose their mum or dad who's brought them up on a Thursday, and they can play football on a Sunday and score a hat-trick or be man of the match. Some people, it can affect them for weeks and months. That doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't. Like, you know, if that's a reason for Rashford's form this season, it's a reason, whether you like it or not. I don't really have anything to say about it, because anything that you say negative about it is going to come quite rightly across as really, really harsh and insensitive. And we're all searching for reasons. You know, we've been talking about Bruno. What's the reason that Bruno's not at the level he is? You know, what's the reason that some of these players haven't been at the reason they're at? Mentality is the big thing, isn't it? Shabazz needs some justice. Right, okay, so Shabazz said, sack Eric Ten Hag now, suffer for 5 more years. So I've read that, sack him now, and then, or we'll suffer for 5 more years. What he actually meant was, don't sack Ten Hag now, he needs time. So Shabazz, redemption, he meant it another way round. He went, if we sack Ten Hag, we'll suffer for 5 more years. Which, I think 5 more years might be a long time, but I do agree with you. The cycle will continue. Where were the excuses for Sancho, says Trevor. See, this is what you do. It's like talking about selling Greenwood. You open up this player FC sort of shit. Jadon Sancho got given 3 months off, and he wasn't injured, to go and deal with whatever he dealt with, and only came back when he was ready. So I don't know what you're talking about Sancho, because Sancho was given 3 months off. Rashford's not taken any time off. He's kept playing. So I don't know what the circumstances were with Sancho, but you can't say that the club didn't give him time, and everybody supported him on that. You know, he was given 3 months for whatever reason, and then he came back. So Sancho was given support. You can't argue about that. Rachel says the Derby County goalkeeper, his wife died, and it took him a long time to get over it. Exactly. Everybody's unique. Hi, Mark. Can you say unlucky Elias LFC, says Ricky C. And I think Aki puts it perfectly. He says, a loss affects people in different ways. He should have took time away from the game. Yeah, but you know what? Look at it like that. If he needed time away from the game, could United afford to let him have time away from the game? I mean, they would have done, but, you know, sometimes people try and play through it, don't they? Rashford's been given 8 years already, so sad. I see. Opened a can of worms, as someone said in the chat. Anyway, look, the vast majority of this show has been fantastic. There's some really positive stuff in there, of course. I think it's really interesting what Sir Jim Radcliffe has said about we're not going to spend a lot of money on players. There's 2 or 3 takeaways from me for the show today, and I'm going to start doing this more and more. One, Bruno Fernandes has spoken about Joao Neves. He'll cost 100 million quid. 2, Sir Jim Radcliffe has basically said we're not going to be buying players for that value anymore. We've got to find our own. 3, he said that what Arteta's done at Arsenal is based on patience by Arsenal. So is that a good sign for Ten Hag? On Garnacho, Real Madrid do sign players younger now. They could come for him in the next 12 months. Going back to what Sir Jim Radcliffe said about recruiting our own talent, that's great. Dan Ashworth's coming in. Brighton, recruit talent and sell it high. If we're going to recruit talent, but then we're going to sell it to Real Madrid like Garnacho, what is Man United? We need to recruit talent and keep talent. I don't want to become a glorified Brighton where we buy players cheap and young and then sell them high and become a money-making machine. I want to keep that talent. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. We're back at 2 o'clock. Got a cracking video for you. And 8 o'clock tonight. The 8 o'clock shows are brilliant at the moment. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Smash a like on the video. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. And don't forget, listen to Goldbridge Saves Football. Scan the QR code. Or just go to the Spotify page. Or go through the link in the description. Brilliant bit in there of where I was losing faith in Ten Hag. It's